Greetings everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, Logic in Faith TV. Please, if you're a new viewer, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can get notified when I drop content like this. I promise you this channel is going to add more value to your life. You're going to learn a lot more than you've ever learned before about Christianity and the logical aspect of it. Today we are going to cover the topic how the Bible was compiled. How was this holy book compiled? Most Christian denominations, if not all Christian denominations, make use of the Bible, but they don't know the history behind it or how it was compiled. So today I'm going to be teaching us how the Bible was compiled. Okay, so first of all, we are going to look at the content of the Bible. The Bible was divided into two segments, the Old Testament and the New Testament. That is how the Bible was divided. So, this is general knowledge by now. I believe almost every Christian knows this. So, talking about the Old Testament has not been really debated on and it has been generally accepted. And the process of canonization was actually not that complex like that of the New Testament, and I'll give 5 reasons why. 1. Jewish tradition. 2. Historical stability. 3. Christian adoption. 4. Limited variations. There were, there were not so many denominations back then when the Old Testament was compiled. And the last reason is less theological controversy. So these are the 5 reasons why the Old Testament has not been really debated on and it has been generally accepted by the Christian community worldwide. So let us look at the New Testament. Now, the general debate lies on the New Testament because there have been different theologies, different controversies, different traditions concerning the New Testament, and we are going to look into it. First of all, when Jesus Christ came to planet Earth to save mankind, the Old Testament was already in existence, but the New Testament was not in existence. So, this is what I want you guys to keep at the back of your mind. The Old Testament has been in existence before Jesus Christ came down on earth. But the New Testament was yet to exist. It was after the death of Christ that the New Testament was then compiled to be used as the canonical scriptures we have today as the New Testament. So that is to say, when Christ was on earth, he didn't make use of a complete Bible we have today. He didn't make use of a complete Bible we have today. So just keep that at the back of your mind. And I'm going to break this down further and explain how we have the 27 canonical scriptures we have in the New Testament. Obviously, I believe you must have heard that there are other books out there, which is not a lie. There are other books out there that was not included in the Bible, but they were not included for a reason, and we are still going to look into that. So I kept asking myself, if there are other books out there, why then did they choose only 27? What was the criteria? It was not like God gave man a direct order to, use these 27 books. It was man's idea to compile these 27 books as the New Testament. So, what were the criterias they used in screening out the other books that were not part of the canon? That was the question I asked myself before I kept digging in for this research. Now, the canon of the New Testament, that's the next section we are going into now. I'm going to read from my rabbi notes. The process of selecting and establishing the canon of the New Testament was a gradual and complex development in early Christianity. Different Christian communities had various collection of texts, and there was no universal agreed upon canon for several centuries. The process of canonization involves factors such as apostolic authorship, widespread usage in worship, and theological consistency with established Christian beliefs. Now, before I go on to the next paragraph, I would throw little light on this. Now, in the early Christian communities, when Christianity started, when they tried to thrive, there was no Bible. There was no Bible then. So they made use of some scriptures, because this Bible we have today, it is not one book. It is like a library, a collection of different books. Yes. So different authors over in different time frames. It wasn't written in one sitting, neither was it done by one person. So the Bible is like a library, and then in the early Christian community, they were making use of any book that they had. There was no generally accepted book that we have just like today, like we have the Bible. So then, if Peter wrote a letter to um, Colossians, they would make use of that letter in their own Christian community. So at the time, the books were getting much. There were different books and it was getting much. So they had to do something about it. So continuing the paragraph under the subtopic Canon of the New Testament, it goes on. Councils, synod, and church leaders played key roles in formalizing the canon. The Council of Hippo in the year 393 AD and the Carthage 397 AD are often cited as events where discussions about the canon took place. However, it's important to note that the canonization process was not a single event, but a gradual consensus building process over several centuries within the Christian community. The final list of the book in the New Testament, as we have it today, was generally accepted by the 5th century. Now, that's the end of the paragraph. So, what the paragraph is talking about is that though we have 27 canonical scriptures in the New Testament, it wasn't done overnight. It took several centuries and several meetings for these 27 canons to be accepted into the New Testament. And two major events that made this a possibility was the Council of Hippo, which happened in the year 393 AD, and the Carthage, which happened in the year 397 AD. So these were two events that shaped the how would I put it? That shaped the selecting of the canon. I think that's the best way to put it. So it wasn't still generally accepted until the 5th century. So you can now see how everything played out. It didn't just appear overnight. It didn't just appear overnight. So it took time. It was a gradual process. So we'll go to the next subtopic or the next big question. Who then certified the compilation of the Bible and what were the requirements? Because this is what this whole topic is all about. We want to know who certified the compilation of the Bible. We already know the requirements, which are apostolic authorship or association, orthodoxy, widespread usage, and consistency with tradition. Rather, what am I trying to say? The requirements for your book to be considered as being part of the canon, it must be from an apostle or an association with an apostle. For instance, for a book to be considered then to be part of the canon, the author must be an apostle. If the author was not an apostle, at least the author must have an association with an apostle. For example, I'm giving an instance. Let's take Paul as a case study. If they wanted to consider one of the books written by Paul, Paul has to be an apostle, which he was, or at least one of his, should I use the word followers, or one of the persons under him maybe must have written a book. So they would consider it because he is a follower of Paul, he lives by the example of Paul. So provided that he has the apostolic association, they would consider his book. But not only that, orthodoxy. They said books needed to align with established Christian doctrines and teachings. Texts that deviated from orthodox were not included. So any book that didn't align with the old canonical scriptures from the Old Testament, they wouldn't consider it because they believed it was not inspired by God. God cannot contradict himself, so they excluded it from the canon. The next one is widespread usage. So they say the acceptance and usage of certain texts in liturgical practices and worship within various Christian communities contributed to the recognition as authorized books. And the last one is consistency with tradition. So these were the four criterias for a book to be added to the New Testament canon or not. So it must be a 4 over 4, an apostolic authorship or association, orthodoxy, widespread usage, and consistency with tradition. It cannot deviate from any of these four requirements. If it's a 3 over 4, then I don't think it will be included. Okay, so having covered the requirements needed for your book, or for a book rather, to be considered then to be part of the canonical scriptures, I'm going to end part one of this topic here because I'm not a fan of very long videos. So I will end the part one of this topic, how the Bible was compiled. So I would end it here. In the part two of the video, I'm going to cover the remaining lessons for you to know how we have the Bible that we have today. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and I promise you over time you're going to amass so much knowledge about Christianity from this channel. Please do well to hit the subscribe button and do well to also smash that notification bell so that you can get notified when I drop contents like this. See you around soon. Take notes, this is not the complete video. I'm going to make the part 2 of this video, so hit that subscribe button. Thanks.